Today we're going to be talking about how to win the one game. You guys solve puzzles all the time. The puzzle ends and sometimes people are like, I don't get it. Am I winning? How do I win this? It's a great question. And we're going to be looking at a game that demonstrates winning the one game. It's good to do imbalance training. What is the imbalance on the position in front of you? Well, it's a rook versus a bishop. So obviously black is winning. But do you think you'd be able to convert this position against Magnus? If not, then it's not a winning position to you. It's just a position that we need to turn into a winning position for you. This game was played by Anatoly Karpov with the white pieces versus Zbigniew Hradček with the black pieces. And we're going to review the game in its entirety so that you can appreciate and understand the intricacies that led to this position. So, let's get into the game. We have Karpov with the white pieces. He's playing d4. We get knight f6 by black, and then we get e6. Now, had white gone knight c3, maybe we would have gotten a Nimzo, maybe a Bogo, maybe a Queen's Indian, who knows? We get an anti-Nimzo. The anti-Nimzo is when you go knight f3, which stops the move bishop to b4 check, or at least makes it not good, neutralizes the check. We get pawn to c5 entering kind of like a Benoni. Had white played d5, the reason I found this game is because we've been talking a lot about the Blumenfeld counter gambit. It's kind of like an open banco. I love the banco. It's closed center. This is an open banco. It's even more fun to play. But that just wasn't Karpov. Karpov, the Karpovian school of chess was very positional. He played it very safe. So we get the move e3 just solidifying everything, solidifying the center. Now Hradček plays quite a dubious move here. He plays the move pawn to g6. Why is this dubious? So, if you study a lot of chess, you know you're never supposed to push g and e, because you don't want to open up both dark square diagonals for your bishop, because then it's kind of like Swiss cheese weaknesses. You have weaknesses on both ends and you can't cover them both. You're going to have to commit to one side, and then the other side is going to be rendered weak. That's principled. Also, you make the light squared bishop good, right? Imagine this pawn on e7 and this pawn on d6. You open up one diagonal for the dark squared bishop, one diagonal for the light squared bishop. Your pawn structure is quite harmonious. Here, not so much. He's playing it like a dragon, Sicilian, even though there's not a pawn on e4. Some of my students like to think of it that way. So sure, be my guest. We had knight to c3, bishop to g7 developing. And Karpov, he jumps past the center of the board. That's not something Karpov did all too often. But he goes knight to b5 with the idea of going knight to d6 check. Let me add the bar for you guys. There you go. There's the bar. It's a little cut off, but all right. I'll fix it. Let me not be lazy now. Yeah. Is that a good bar? Do you guys like that bar? I think that's quite a fine bar. So we get knight to b5, and black is already slightly better. Black castles, avoiding knight to d6 check, but the whole reason Karpov did that is to freeze the d pawn. So we get knight to d6, freezing the d-pawn, making this bishop quite bad. What moves would you play here? There's many moves. It's not a critical position. You could take, you could play b6, you could play knight a6, or you could play the move that Hradček played that I quite like, that is knight to e8. Now, I love this move because the thorn in black's position is this knight on d6 that's freezing black's position. So knight on e8 tries to eliminate the thorn right away. Right? If you don't eliminate the thorn, it could end up being the bane of your existence. That's not something you want. You're like, oh, I'll deal with that guy later. Later never comes. Later ends up destroying you because you didn't deal with it earlier. That's a great just principle to apply to all facets of life. Karpov takes the light squared bishop. Sure. Sure. He wanted the queen to be on c8. He's like, bishops can become good. It wasn't such a great bishop right now, but it could have became good. He's right in that aspect. We get bishop to e2, takes, pawn d5. This is beautiful. This is good chess. You enter an iso position where both sides have isolated d-pawns, but is it easier for white to apply pressure to black's d-pawn or for black to apply pressure to white's d-pawn? That's the question you would need to ask yourself before playing d5. I suppose he answered it himself because he ended up playing d5, and there you have your answer. It is easier for black to apply pressure onto the d4 pawn than it is for white to apply pressure onto the d5 pawn. We get castles by white and knight to c6 just developing. All right, bishop to f4. The pieces are coming out. It's almost resembling a London, which is pretty wild. I just realized that. And we got knight to c7. I love this move. What is the point of knight to c7? Well, the point of knight to c7 is that you want to go e6 and add all of these attackers to d4, and it's not quite easy for white to defend it. You might be like, oh, so white took the knight? No, white didn't take the knight because he doesn't want to lose his bishop pair. That is the one tangible asset that he has going for him long term. So we get rook to c1, a beautiful move, a very Karpovian move. If this knight moves, the other knight will be pinned. Does black care? Apparently not. He goes knight e6 and the knight on c6 is now pinned. And bishop to e5. Now this is a beautiful move. What would you play here? Some people might say bishop h6. I would argue that'll weaken your king later on. Some people might go f6. Ben Feingold would not, right? Never play f6. That's his rule. And here it's applicable because it would weaken, soften your pawn structure over here on the king side. So don't do that. What else could you do? Well, he played the move queen to d8, and I love this move. Right? Untying the knight, making it a real piece instead of a fake piece that can't move. He's just calmly getting out of the pin. He's like, I'm fine. He's like, take my bishop. I'll just take with the king. Karpov went bishop to b5, a blunder. A GM blunder, right? A mistake. Why is this move a mistake? What did he miss? The oversight was knight takes d4. How does this all work? It's a brilliant move, according to chess.com and according to me. Whose opinion do you value more? Well, let's talk about it. So if we get knight takes, this doesn't work out so well for white because bishop takes e5. You might get knight takes, f takes. Temporarily, you're up a pawn. It is an opposite color bishop endgame. White would be trying to trade major pieces to get to a drawn position, but that doesn't look too good. Surely there must be better. We got bishop takes g7 by white. Knight takes f3. That's the very important switch, right? That's how you get away with not losing a piece. Queen takes, preserving the structure. King takes. You're up a pawn. It's an isolated pawn, but it's a passed pawn. White builds up on the passed pawn. Black pushes it to try to maintain it, try to hold on to it. And what should you play here as white? I'm very shocked that Karpov didn't play this move because he was very positional. To me, it looks obvious that it's the only move. And this was a rapid game, so maybe they were a little short on time at the time. But bishop to c4 has to be played, right? Remove the defender, blockade the passed pawns. That's going to be your chance to hold equality or near that at least. He takes the poison pawn. Never take the poison pawn. I won't say never, but almost never. 9 times out of 10. We get rook to b8 building up. Now what does white need to do? White has to play the move queen to c6. At which point we'll get the move rook to b6 and black is comfortably better. But he blunders. Maybe he didn't get a good night's sleep. Karpov was just not on his stuff today. Find the winning move. Knight c7, a fork. Did you find it? Good job if so. Good job if not so, right? Good job regardless. Just kidding. Rook takes. He has to sack the exchange. And now, you know, this pawn could not be taken. Karpov would have loved to take that pawn. But there are just too many threats in the midst. And that would be an easily convertible position for black. So we get b3, queen b6, right? Trade when you're up material. Fine. Take. And we get this piece, major piece, endgame. Kind of major piece with a minor piece. Rook and bishop versus 2 rooks. That's all I'm trying to say, my guys. So we got bishop to c4, rook to d6. Okay, let's hone in on this position. Why rook to d6? Many people might be like, oh, I'm just going to go rook to d8. But then where is this rook going? What is this rook doing? It's doing nothing. See, it's doing nothing. And it can't go to e6 on the light squares. So he really plays on the dark squares. This rook can go to e8, so may as well put the rook that's not doing anything on d6. Right? He's just making his pieces as free as possible. Karpov blockades the passed pawn as you're supposed to do. Racek threatens back rank checkmate, and Karpov sees mate in 1. Very nice. We get pawn to f5. All right, he's expanding with his pieces, right? Don't forget about to activate your king, is the best piece in the endgame. Your pawn structure, make it mobile. Right? Don't lock everything. That gives the chance for white to create a fortress. Leave the position unlocked. Leave the position with the ability to change the pawn structure because that's how you're really going to win these. We got g3, rook e5, poking, prodding, a4. What do you do against a flank pawn push? You meet a flank pawn push almost exclusively always with flank pawn push. In the opening, typically when it goes up 2, you go up 1. If this one went up 2, you go up 2, and you're deep freezing their position, right? A deep freeze is when you're stopping 2 pawns. This 1 pawn is taking care of these 2 pawns. That's a deep freeze. Deep stuff. We get pawn to h4. Should you go pawn h5? I don't think so. I don't think you should go pawn h5, because then you're really just locking up the position, and that is not what you want to do. You see, of course you're still winning, but you're making it harder. h6, there's more mobility. So does black go g5? Well, there's no rush. Improve your king. Why not? Why not? Now does black go g5? Again, he claims the open file, which diverts the bishop's attention away from the king side back to the queen side. Now the king side is as weak as possible, so he pushes with g5. I mean, this just all makes so much sense. Takes, takes. You get a 2-on-2, f4. What do? Do you push and lock it? I don't think so. Do you leave it alone? Perhaps. Do you take? Well, I like taking because then it's blockaded on a dark square, and what colored bishop does white have? He has a light squared one. So that pawn is going to be a very tangible target for the rest of the game. Now, how do you swing your rooks back? Do you go rook to d8? Maybe. Do you go rook to c8? Probably, because then this rook's not tied down. But you see, then you can't go to g8, and he can cut off h8. So actually, it's better to go to h7, where he can't stop you from going to g7 and h7. See, all these minute differences make a large difference in the grand scheme of things. It's almost like you don't need to think. It's almost like you think a little bit, and then in the future, you don't need to think. You're making moves that will make future decisions easier. That's what these moves, like, sure, you're still winning if rook c8, but what's the plan? Rook c7, you have an abundance of plans, and they can't stop all of them. So that's kind of the nice difference between the two. We get rook h2, rook g7, king e2 trying to get his king in the game, and rook g4 aiming in on the weakness that's blockaded on the dark square. King to f3. All right, you've diverted his king over to the king side. So notice how he plays this. Every time white's attention is diverted towards one side of the board, he makes a move on the other end of the board, and white's forces have to come the other way then. It's still winning, right? This is the most tangible way to win. You can look at the bar all day if you want, but this is how you win. Rook h6, rook to g6, blockading. Rook goes back, pawn goes up. Now the pawn is one away from promoting, and white's forces must stop it from promoting. So bishop to e2. We get king e6. I love this. He's like, you know, I have all the time in the world. How is he going to win my pawn on a dark square? I'm just going to bring my king over to the queen side into the holes. Rook back to g4, aiming in on the blockaded pawn on the dark square. We get rook f1 saving it, but then we get rook d4 amounting even more pressure. The bishop comes to e6, trying to win f5, trying to create a passer of his own, but it's too little too late. You take the pawn, white takes, black takes, white takes. I want everybody to find the winning position in this. Pause the video, find the winning idea in this position, rather. It's good stuff. We get king to d6, gaining a tempo on the bishop. The bishop slides back to c4, and after the move rook to f3, Karpov resigns. The winning idea in this position is just to march the king over here, take this pawn, take, take. He has to be tied down to this thorn on the king side. You take and you promote. So it's a deflection tactic. This is a thorn in white's position. You're going to sack the rook for a bishop and pawn, right? Every time you get a material imbalance, in the endgame, it's actually best not to hold on to that material imbalance. It's best to give the material back in a favorable king setup. I think many people are reluctant to do that because, oh, it's going to be equal material. It doesn't matter if you're winning the game, right? A win's a win. You just want it to be as tangible as possible, as not abstract as possible. Now, some people might be like, I would have just taken this guy. Well, you would have thrown the game then. That's why it's important to study your endgames. This looks extremely winning for white. I'm sorry, for black. I admit it definitely looks extremely winning for black. But look at this. It's actually a draw. You might be like, how is this a draw? I'm just going to use this pawn. Well, yes, you're going to use that pawn. But remember, what do we know about rook pawns? They are the exception to the position. As long as the king gets back to the corner, it's a draw. So look at this. He takes the hypotenuse. He takes the hypotenuse back. If push, you get this position that is just a stalemate. And then you might be like, well, it doesn't quite get to the center, the corner in time. You might be right. So just so you know how to draw this, make sure you do not go back and allow this forward. Even though here it would work out of principle, always go back and forth between these two squares. And then you reach this position. What is this called? That's right. It's a stalemate. So I hope this video taught you a little about winning the one game. I am packing up for the motherland, so videos are going to be a little spotty, but I'll arrive there next week. And then, it's good stuff. It's always good stuff. So, thank you as always for watching. I will see you guys next time. Peace. Boom.